Walter Bargen served as the first poet laureate of the state of Missouri from 2008 to 2010. His poetry and fiction, for which he has been awarded numerous distinguished prizes, have appeared in over 100 magazines. Walter's 15th book of poetry is scheduled for February 2013, that is, if the world doesn't end before then. Walter has said that creativity happens where one's imagination and memory collide with events, and I like that so much. As poet laureate, his goal was to bring poetry back into focus in the lives of people throughout the state. It's our great fortune to have him with us at Spofest again tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, Walter Bargen.
Well, what a set of very hard to follow that set of acts. I should have brought my harmonica. I didn't even think about it. At least, maybe I could have hidden behind a few really terrible chords that I could play on it. It is really interesting that we are so fascinated, fixated, and consumed by millennial type thinking, apocalyptic type thinking. I was just reading an article in the New York Times yesterday on how there was mass panic and hysteria in some small towns in Russia, and that they were putting all kinds of media warnings or trying to calm people down. And there were even groups of people who were suffering epileptic fits as a result of the idea that the world will end on December 21st. What's really fascinating, though, is that why in the world are they bothering to buy out all the groceries in the grocery stores and buy candles? If the world ends, what are they going to do with that? Anyway, any good apocalypse needs some aliens. And of course, that was mentioned in that wonderful recorded introduction. So here is my encounter with aliens. This is called Utterly Again. And this has something to do with many years ago, there was all these rumors about cattle mutilations. I don't know if they're still out there. Maybe the rumors are, but that in a poem that I wrote about cattle mutilations. So this is Utterly Again. A man calls from across the country. He's urgent as cumulus clouds crowded in a phone booth at Atlantic and Boardwalk. I hear him clearly, speaking out of the grip of my hand, the rain of his syllables flooding my ear. He's calling me about the last 2 lines to a poem published 20 years ago in a small South Dakota literary magazine. I don't hear thunder or the drumming of a downpour, but he's persistent. 40 years old, working at an engineering firm that won't promote him until he completes a degree in anything. The poem describes cattle mutilation, the details that turn our heads away even as our eyes keep moving farther down the page. There's the irony of someone, them, traveling light years, hundreds of millions of miles to surgically remove the right ear and eye, the tongue and udder, all the blood and the sexual organs from a grazing Angus, the highest life form in a tick-infested back 40. We talk for half an hour. He says each morning for a week he's repeated the last 2 lines to the poem, and the one they take is a stranger to us all. And the one they take is a stranger to us all. I mumble something about Descartes, consciousness, the mind-body duality of Western culture. I don't believe I've helped. He says it's just what he needed to finish his paper. I ask, who is teaching the class and at what college? But he says he was asked not to reveal names. Later, after his generous thanks and promises to have a check in the mail for copies of all my dusty books, a check that never arrives, I begin to wonder, to have doubts who it was I spoke to. And maybe I shouldn't have given my address to a stranger. Isn't this what we warn children not to do? How could anyone have found that obscure issue of an obscure magazine, to have read a short esoteric poem and then assigned it for class discussion. Who was I really talking to? Maybe they think I know something, and that these words are a code and a plot. In the room by the phone, it's growing dark. The ceiling begins to rain. Take me to your leader. I hesitate to read this next poem because it's so long, and I've never tried to read it in public before. And, a long poem, the danger of a long poem is that, if your audience isn't interested, then you've lost your audience. But I will give it a try, but I may just throw up my hands in the middle of it and grab something else. This is a poem called Give or Take a Day or Two, and it's mostly about Harold Camping, the man last year who predicted the end of the world at least twice that year. Once was on May 21st, and when that didn't happen, he then said, I made a mistake in my calculations, and it was on October 21st of 2011. So it's 5 sections. The first section is kind of describing it. The second section is referring back to another declaration of the end of the world on February 6, 1925. And then it goes back to some of the events, people who were so committed to Harold Camping's prophecy. They did things like sell their house, quit their job, and I'll give it a try. Give or take a day or two. All the flags flying, May 21st, 2011. And if they're not, well, who cares? Harold Camping, certain beyond certain. Sell the house, quit the job. Countries, oaths, allegiances, gone or soon to be gone. The daily tattered, the weekly ravaged, what's left in all around. Maybe there's enough gallant yardage of some flag to wrap a body or two, though unnecessary, going naked anticipated. People who've spent their lives trying to keep it under wraps, tied up, chained in their pants. The public exposure could be a traumatic rapture. People so worried they're praying like there's no tomorrow. Isn't that the point? And half the joke. Scattered all along the street, piles of free clothes for the 99%. Maybe even wallets, new identities, cash, windfall credit, though heavenly sums are out of the question. And the cars, don't forget the shiny cars, at least the ones that aren't suddenly driverless and smashed head-on into trees, telephone poles, or flipped over guardrails. But the rest, in parking lots, their engines still running, welcoming a new driver to open the door, take possession from God's abandoned used car lot. Just toss the shoes left by the accelerator out the window. Push aside the shirt with its paisley tie still tucked under the collar. But that's wishful thinking, and the other half of the joke that's the next day. 2. I tell you it's coming. We are people of the book, and the book reveals to us our end, and we are ending February 6th, 1925, according to Robert Wright, born in Germany, a peripatetic house painter, paper hanger, without any peripheral doubts. He's prepared selling his house and his winter's worth of potatoes, cash in the afterlife somehow still important. At midnight Friday, he says, those who are the brides of the Lamb will turn their faithful eyes to the east, and they shall see the sign, mounted on a dark cloud, surrounded by brilliant light that shall blind the eyes of the wicked to deprive them of their sight. And the 144,000 will be raised up and brought to the woods outside San Diego with a short stop on the planet Jupiter, since the holy shall not travel on the Sabbath. The wretched remaining will be reduced to ashes, twisted into knots of disease, punched, battered, beat with fist-sized hailstones, devoured by crawling pestilence. In East Pierogi, Long Island, in the glare of the cameras, Moments before midnight, Robert Wright missed the sign, the beam of light, the savior-laden cloud, there standing held deep in reporters and cameramen. He returned to the kitchen to wait for the appointed hour. He knew the Lord is on the way to earth. 5 days later, in a radio broadcast from the Roosevelt Hotel, he wouldn't give 5 cents for the Woolsworth building, knowing the fireball about to strike New York City. Over the months, kids back in school, he continued to hang walls of forlorn paper. 3. My mom told me without doubt that I am not going to get into heaven on May 21st, 2011. It made me sad, but it's what she believed. She quit her nursing job. My dad sold the house. They were ready to drive their beliefs down the road. We're living out of one of those whale-sized 70s station wagons. From suburb to town to street fair to farmer's market, we sound the trumpet at the end and hand out blurry photocopied tracts. My parents happily say their final goodbyes to friends and strangers till I'm bored. We sell Doomsday t-shirts to pay for gas, looming black print that drips DOOM. We can't make summer plans, there won't be one. That's what we're told over and over until we're no longer hearing what they say. Anyway, they'll be gone. 2 puddles of clothes where they once stood, while me, my brother and sister, will be here for the plagues, the quakes, the wars, the famines. Actually, not much different really from what's happening right now. If my mother tells me to get cleaned up, I laugh and tell her, who cares if the world's going to end? I'll be at a friend's birthday party Saturday night, and either way, I'm not sure I'll have parents to return to. 4. May 19th, 2011. There's so little time left. I'm glad God's in charge. Believe me, Harold Camping isn't. I couldn't possibly keep up with all the radio show interviews. We've bought 5,500 billboards, including 400 in India, printed 100 million pamphlets in 61 languages, and have 20 RVs driving 24/7, spreading the word. Family radio worldwide broadcasts to the farthest corners, AM, FM, low power and television, even though we're headquartered between a custom auto body shop that specializes in metallic flaked paint jobs and a tarot reader psychic who keeps offering us free introductory palm readings here in Oakland, California. We just keep waving our Bibles. We're about to shut down the phone lines. There's just too much joyful weeping. We all have our crosses to bear and bear. Every hill in San Francisco is a Calvary with or without brake pads. I've calculated that Saturday is the 7,000th anniversary of that first Rocking in the Waves star, Noah. And he didn't need any guitar, codpiece, glittering spandex, though he had big hair, enough to upstage Kiss and Aerosmith together. It's these millennia of sins that's sinking us again, but this time 200 million of us are headed upstairs and naked to boot. 5. May 22nd, 2011. Aftermath. It was really a tough weekend. Judgment Day has come and passed, but it was a spiritual judgment on the world. There is no more salvation. Salvation is over. God is God. God's going to do what he has to do. It's right. It's good. We just don't understand how. God delayed judgment so more people could be saved, and now we really know that will be October 21st, 2011, when the world ends. In 1844, we wept and wept all night until we could weep no more. This afternoon, Memorial Day, May 31st, I listen The turntable spins vinyl, and that crazily eclectic 60s group, the incredible string band, sings. Kazoo and sitar playing hoedown rhythms in the song Log Cabin in the Sky. We ain't got no home in this world anymore. We ain't got no home in this world anymore. Give or take a day or two. Thank you.